Mike Mudry, USA Mortgage, I guess you're kind of like our co-host. I mean, you just come and hang out with us every week. You got
I enjoy
nothing else
the
to
heck
do on
out of
Sundays?
it. That's right.
We love having you.
Thank you. I love being here.
So last week we started talking about some of the new rules coming down from the CFPB, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, whose job is to protect us from all the evil, bad dealings of everybody that might take our money as consumers. So this is not a political show, so we're not going to go too deep into that. But we started talking about underwriters, and I just want to kind of first off explain to our listeners how important it is to pick the right mortgage lender when they're looking at making a home purchase, and how important it is if you're selling a house to know who your buyer intends to use as their lender, because they're not all the same, are they?
No, in my opinion, they're not. Having done this for 23 years, I've worked for multiple different entities, banks, brokers, mortgage banks.
Right.
And at USA Mortgage, we're the largest mortgage bank in St. Louis. And
there's a reason for that.
There's a reason.
And we at Gerard Realty Group have had experiences with numerous lenders, from national humongous banks all the way down to, credit unions. And we are, I guess we get requests from lenders probably a dozen times a week. Somebody comes to our office and says, hey, we really want you to recommend us to your clients. And we're very protective at the Gerard Realty Group about who we recommend, because we only recommend people, whether it's for a mortgage or for a basement foundation repair, we only recommend people who we have complete faith that they're going to get the job done right and on time and in budget. And so over the years, I've dealt with a number of lenders, and you and I have been working together for about 3.5, almost 4 years, I think.
That's right.
And the reason why we continue to recommend to our clients that they call you at USA Mortgage is because you always get it done. And I think a big part of that is just your underwriting. So let's just talk for a minute about what kind of the role of the underwriter is in the process, and then why that role or why the underwriters at USA Mortgage are a huge advantage in the business.
Yeah, so let me address that first. So all of our underwriters are local. Our underwriting department is predominantly right here. Now, sometimes we have underwriters who maybe work from home as a convenience, but predominantly everything gets done right here. So we don't have to wait to send an email and not hear back from a long time. We can get action done quickly.
Local underwriters matter.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Number two, our underwriters are what they call delegated. So whatever loan program you're trying to do, more than likely our underwriters are delegated for it. So an underwriter has to know not only the Fannie Mae guidelines, the Freddie Mac guidelines, the FHA guidelines, the VA guidelines,
different types of loans.
All the different types of loan programs, which is exactly what I also need to know. Those underwriters need to know the requirements of every investor that we send loans to.
So you say they're delegated. That means that you have an underwriter specializes in one or some of those loan programs?
Yeah. So, for example,
how's that different, though?
Well, when somebody does an FHA loan, it doesn't get underwritten by FHA. Our underwriters are delegated on behalf of FHA, VA to make that decision.
So they're delegated by the source of the funds, by
their experience. They had to train to do that. They had to do test cases. They had to do all sorts of things to acquire those certifications.
I got you. Is that different than in a different mortgage company or a regular bank? Are there underwriters?
Well, they can be similar. I mean, it depends on the level of experience. It depends on their structure. But sure, it could be very similar.
Okay.
But one of the things that makes us, in my opinion, work so smoothly is just the team of people that we have assembled, from the processors to the underwriters to the other experts who can look at these things. And
here's what I think is the main difference, and you touched on it a minute ago when you said that they were local. You, Mike Mudry, loan officer, you don't really have any decision process as far as whether somebody gets the loan or not.
That's correct.
But only if you know the underwriter can you at least have some kind of influence. Now, they're not going to do a loan that they don't like. They're not going to do a loan to somebody that can't afford to pay it back, right?
Right, sure. So there's areas that come up often that can be somewhat gray.
Right. That's my point.
Yeah.
And you need you need to influence on behalf of your client, our buyer.
We need to make a case. So I would need to have that conversation with the individual seeking the loan, find out all of the information that, what is making this gray situation, what is the cause of it, what's this, get a complete explanation of it, and then make a case. Because not everything is covered under the guidelines in every situation.
And I guess the difference, what I want to get to, the difference is that you can actually speak. You've met, it's like a human to human interaction. You don't just send a file to the basement, of some tower in Dallas or in North Carolina.
We're a team.
You're a team, right? And it allows for the buyer to have a personal viewpoint over whether or not they're going to get that loan and the rate and just the approval or not approval.
Right, and it allows the buyer to have a legitimate case, a legitimate explanation as to why this can get done or why it can't get done, and get all the documentation and present the best case. And that's part of what my job is to work with the consumer and say, here's what we need to do and here's why.
So if you're listening and you're thinking about a home transaction, you're thinking about buying a house, and if you have a house that is under contract, you want to know that your buyer is with the right kind of lender. And so having a local underwriter is a big deal. That's one of the first questions I think that you should ask any lender that you might be talking to. Is the underwriter local? Because it makes a big difference.
There's a number of companies in town that have local underwriting, but every aspect of our operation is local. I mean, the processing, the originating, the closing, the funding, it all takes place at my office at 270 and Olive. But it's a good thing to know. So
another thing that I think has a big impact that is also affected by the underwriter or let's say the skill of the underwriter is documentation, right? So it's generally speaking, each type of loan has a certain set of documents that are required in order to get through underwriting. And underwriters don't always ask for the same thing once, do they? I mean, is there a difference in the type of documentation or the frequency of request?
Well, generally speaking, as the loan officer, the person that you have the first contact with, I would ask for a standard set of documents. Maybe they all wouldn't be required for the underwriter, but I would ask for them to make sure that I had covered everything that could potentially come up.
But I hear from people who are with other lenders, and frequently, I mean, I think probably in the last few months you have saved 2 or 3 transactions from falling apart because of underwriting at other banks or other lenders requested some document at the end of the line that was either provided early on and now they need it to be updated or whatever, or was never really asked for in a time frame by which the information could be where it needs to be in order to make that loan commitment.
Yeah, well, so my philosophy on that is it all starts with the very beginning. It all starts with the originator. And that originator has to ask the right questions and ask for the right documentation from the beginning to make sure that he or she knows exactly what it is that they're dealing with. And you can't wait for it to be exposed at underwriting, because that's when typically it would become a problem. And then that's when somebody has to jump in and bail it out.
But the underwriter still has to get their information. They have to understand what they're looking at.
Right. And that's a very important job that they have, because, they've gone through all the training and they sign their name as the underwriter. So they have to do their due diligence on everything. And it makes it easier for the underwriter if you have somebody, some of the well-trained loan officers that we have at USA Mortgage for doing the job on the front end.
Right. It's I don't know, it's funny. Maybe other people might not think it's funny. I think it's funny. Not funny like ha-ha, but funny like, oh, that was odd. It's funny that what we tell people is the bigger the bank, the bigger the issues are going to be. And the closer...
I didn't say that.
I said that. I can say that. It's radio. I can say whatever I want, I think. But what we ask people, we first of all, we recommend that they call Mike Mudry at USA Mortgage. If for some reason they don't want to, if they have a relationship that they think is more valuable someplace else, what we say is please just make sure that bank is local and make sure that the underwriting is local, because it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So,
and the only thing I would say real quick, Damian, to somebody who, maybe has that relationship, a second opinion never hurt.
Exactly.
And whatever you're doing.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Well, Mike, as always, we are running out of time, and as always, we appreciate your participation as an expert contributor on the Gerard Realty Show. We're glad that you are with us on a regular basis.
Be here.
And if any of our listeners are thinking about getting in the market, and again, folks, it's not just for the buyers, but for sellers too. You want to know whether your buyer is with an underwriting company, a lender, a mortgage company, bank, whatever it is. You got to know that your buyer is getting his files in correct order. So how would somebody reach you if they want to jump into the mortgage world?
Please call me at 314-503-6024. If you're in the process of something and it's a problem, or you just have some general questions, 314-503-6024.